The first principle of powerful strikes is body first, weapon last. So what that basically means is whatever you're hitting with, whether it's a closed fist shot, a palm strike, an elbow, even a kick, whatever, that tool that you're striking with stays behind for as long as possible. And you want to move as much of your body forward of that as you can, and then at the last minute bring that weapon out, and that's how you're going to develop power. The way that works is by something known as the stretch reflex. Okay, so the way that what that basically means is by keeping my hand back here, for example, with a closed fist punch, and then moving my hips forward while keeping my shoulder to the rear and shifting my head over, moving as much as my trunk, rotating it round that way as much as I can, and keeping that back there. There's going to come a point where my pec or my obliques, or it's always a bit different on different people, will stretch to a point where a little signal will be sent from that muscle telling my body, hey, you know, you better contract this muscle now because that's being stretched too much. Okay, so that's technically how it works. There's a little thing in the muscle called a proprioceptor, and it basically senses when it's being stretched too far, and it goes fuck, and it contracts the muscle like, oh, like shit, like that. That's why if you suddenly pull somebody like that and they're shocked, they'll tense up like fuck. It doesn't, you know, because they don't, that's their stretch reflex kicking in most cases. So we're looking to trigger that in ourselves, and that's why when we move our body violently forward and we leave that hand back there, at that last minute, the hand wants to come forward because the muscle contracts anyway, and then we translate that into a punch. So if I was teaching you one-on-one, I would use some what's called cues to help develop that in you. And all I do basically is hold your shoulder or your elbow even back, or just place my hand on your elbow and get you to consciously keep it there. It's like what we do against the wall. You keep your hand on keep your arm against it. What we can also use to help us with this is a resistance band. So you've done this in the past, but we're going to do this with a different mindset now. We're not looking to use these in a way where we're going to get a pump in our muscle or develop get a good workout out of it, get a burn in the muscle. We're going to use this as a tool to basically anchor our hand to the rear as long as possible, but then there's enough, because it does stretch, it allows us to follow through with it as well. So the way we're going to anchor it is we're going to get into pairs, and one person is going to hold the resistance band like so. So hand goes in, hold it about face height because that's what we're aiming at, yeah? And then I would recommend that you put your second hand about there. And the reason is not necessarily because there's going to be so much force pulling that way, there won't be, but if something terrible happens and your partner lets go and it pings back towards you and you're holding that at your face height, your hand's already there, isn't it? So you can just not get that in your face. So you're going to hold it like that, get your second hand there, and just hold it there, and you're just going to act as an anchor. Okay, so if I could get somebody to be that anchor. So leave that in there, and your second hand, yeah, just keep that there. So if I just let go of that, you'll be all right. So what we're going to look at first, the first strike we'll look at is the hook, the slap, whatever you want to call it. And the reason we're going to use that one first is because it's the easiest to sort of get this with, because it's a nice simple shot that works off of rotational energy, and it rotates, you know, on that plane of motion. So if I'm holding this in my right hand, my partner, the anchor, is going to be directly to my 3 o'clock, and I'm going to be square on to my imaginary target here, like so. So I don't want to be angled any other way. I want my partner to be directly to the side of me. I'm going to get my hand cocked back into this position, just as you would if you're about to throw that shot. Get your hand in there. And for this, by the way, although we're training for open hand shots generally, you might want to make a loose fist on this just for the sake of safety, right? So keep that hand up there, walk away from your partner enough that there's a bit of tightness in there, you don't want any slack. And then from here, we're going to look at rotating our hips round as far as we can to initiate that stretch reflex, so I can't really go anymore from there, and then that's going to make me want to follow through with that shot. And we'll go quite slow with this. Again, we're not going to go nuts, and then get a burn in the muscle and all that stuff. We're just going to use this as a training aid. So it's going to look something like this. So, all I'm doing is keeping my feet square on like this. Your non-striking hand, keep it up here, because never lose the context of what it is you're training for, right? So that's up there protecting your head or whatever it might be doing in a real situation. Keep that up there. I'm rotating my hip round quite violently while keeping that back there, and that's what the purpose of this is. It's telling me to keep my hand back there, yeah? When you don't have something there, it's quite easy to start rotating like that, where the shoulder girdle moves with the hips. You don't want that, you want that separation, okay? So, my head moves over as well to really help get a stretch there. And when you come back, just let it come back under its own steam. A lot of you have experience with weights where you might be tempted to bring it in forward and then bring it back slowly, because that's what you do with weights. Don't worry about all that stuff. Let it come back under its own steam. The elastic will bring it back for you. That's fine. Okay? Any questions on that? No? So we'll do a few reps on one side, swap over, do the other side, and then we're going to do it on the pads. Okay? So the person who was just holding the resistance band, you now want to put some pads on, and you're going to hold pads just for hooks now. Okay? Just for the same strike you were working on. Bring some footwork into it, so move about a bit. But the person who was just on the bands, that stretch feeling that you just had there, recreate it in those strikes now, okay? So try and recreate that feeling that you just had. All right, let's go. So a quick word on the hook, what we were just doing, what I used to really refer to as the slap. The reason I call it hook now is, like a lot of self-defense instructors, the way I used to go about teaching that is like this, and it doesn't look much different, but the difference is the elbow is down. And there's two reasons, main reasons why you'd want that elbow to be up instead. So you're throwing it along this plane as opposed to coming from down there and slapping up like that. One is because if I get somebody here to demonstrate. One is, when you're fighting somebody, they tend to have a hand up in front of them, either because it's on you or it's protecting their head against you. So if you're coming from down here, oh dear, yeah? And the whole point of this, of hitting from this angle, should be not just for the sake of adding variety to your strikes, but for an actual purpose, which is to get round this obstruction. And that's why I keep that elbow up, so I can actually come round there, and because my straight shot has been blocked off. The other reason I would want that elbow up is just for the sake of physics and structure. I'm going to hit a lot harder if I stab that forearm in from the side like that. And you can thank Mick Coop for really introducing us to that concept. Because if you look at, so if you look at everybody else, the way this was being done in the past was all like this. But when you apply that on a real human being, it's not going to work like that. So you've got to train it the way you're going to do it, don't you? So.